It's no secret that President Trump, what he wants to do, it is no secret that President Trump, what he wants to do, that he wants to do away with the Federal Reserve altogether. He said he knows interest rates much better than you do. I want you to know that some of us here have been fighting to make sure that everybody understands the importance of the central bank. Every country dealing with crypto, their central bank is involved. But, of course, Trump and the opposite side of the aisle fought us. And that's one of the reasons we were not able to come together with a bipartisan agreement on stablecoins. You previously said that you would not resign if Trump asked you to do that. Do you stand by that commitment?
I have no changes to that.
I can't hear you.
Yes.
Thank you. Please let the record record that adequately. I appreciate that because you have a right to your position not to be interfered with by law, I believe, or even Constitution. When Musk comes knocking at the Fed's door, are you going to let him in?
I don't have anything for you on that.
Would you like to tell us today that you won't let DOGE into the Federal Reserve or have access to the systems and the data?
So I don't have any, we've had no contact, and I don't really have, I have nothing for you to report today on that.
Well, you know what happened at Treasury, and you know what happened over at the CFPB, and the people of this country are being violated because all of our privacy is being taken up by Elon Musk and Trump, and we don't know what all they have on us, our bank accounts, everything that in our lives. So I want to protect it in the Fed. Mr. Powell, the last time you testified before this committee, you said, and I quote, "Really successful institutions in the United States generally are those that do a really good job on diversity and get the best out of people and attract a broad, diverse range of talents to the table. That is the way we feel about it. And at the Fed, and that is what we've been doing and will continue to do." Chair Powell, how will you ensure that the Fed continues to attract the best and most diverse employees?
You know, institutions like ours, private and public, are in a constant contest to hire the best talent in the country. And we've all learned, I think, and certainly we have, that we will go anywhere to find that talent, and including places that we didn't go 25 years ago. And we'll just continue to do that. You know, we're recruiting, as you know, at many, many, many universities and colleges, including historically black universities and colleges, and others. And that's what we find, and that's our practice. We think that's the best way to go about it.
Thank you very much, and that's what I've always felt about the Fed. No matter what they call it, you only attracted and hired the best qualified people in your operation, no matter what they refer to it as, what they call it, whatever way they define it. Is that right?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Chair Powell, are you willing to provide my staff with an immediate briefing from your agency on the status of your OMWEs and equal employment offices?
Yes.
Thank you. I believe that you know that the OMWEs were created with the Dodd-Frank reforms. It's in law. And as I understand it, any attempt to dismantle OMWEs would have to come before the Congress of the United States of America. Is that your understanding?
Well, yes. Section 342 of Dodd-Frank, which is the OMWE section, is the law.
Thank you. Chair Powell, to what extent have you consulted with other board members in determining how your agency is complying with Section 342 of Dodd-Frank, and as well as any other federal anti-discrimination law?
I think we've consulted with senior staff and board members quite a bit.
Chair Powell, days after his inauguration, President Trump issued an executive order on digital assets, which includes a prohibition on central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs. The executive order banned any, quote, form of digital money or monetary value denominated in denominated in the national unit of account that is a direct liability of central bank, end quote. I'm concerned that this extremely broad definition could go far beyond CBDCs. Well, thank you very much. My time is up, but I appreciate your presence here today, and I appreciate your willingness to stand up for your right to be
Gentlewoman's
the
time
chair.
has expired.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. Barr, for 5 minutes.
Chairman Powell, let me ask you a quick monetary policy question and then turn to bank regulation and Treasury market structure. I know hindsight is 20/20, but it's important to learn from mistakes, as you know, and you've conceded that the Fed miscalculated on inflation and mischaracterized inflation as transitory in 2021-2022 time period. Given that inflation remains stuck above the Fed's 2% target, will you commit to scrapping the flexible average inflation targeting framework? And if not, why wouldn't you commit to returning just to a simple 2% target?
So we're just beginning the review. It'll be done, as I mentioned, by the end of the summer, and that's the exact question we'll be asking. I can't commit to a particular outcome. I need to respect the process and the views of the other 18 participants on the FOMC.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I just hope that in that process that you and your colleagues recognize that framework allowed rising inflation to persist and allowed the Fed to mislabel it as transitory. Let me turn to bank regulation. In October of last year, I led a bipartisan CODEL to Basel, Switzerland, met with the Basel Committee on Bank Supervision, and there the committee actually conceded to us, agreed with me that the Michael Barr proposal of July 2023 actually gold-plated bank capital requirements, and instead of actually promoting international harmonization, actually made American banks less competitive. They conceded that to us. So I applaud the Fed for not moving forward on that July 2023 proposal that would have made it harder for large banks to, among other things, facilitate the smooth functioning of the U.S. Treasury market, including holding treasuries on the balance sheet. Couple questions. One is, should the goal of our bank capital rules, should it be regulatory harmonization internationally, or should it be American economic competitiveness?
I mean, clearly, the goal is to have a strong banking system that supports American economic activity and growth. That's the ultimate goal. What you get from Basel is a global floor so that the other banks can't run on less capital and sort of have a short-term advantage. That was the whole point of Basel, was to get everybody to the same kind of level so that there wouldn't be the race to the bottom.
And I see that utility, but I think the goal of our regulatory system should be America first, and it should be about American economic growth and competitiveness. But let's talk about the Treasury market issues. Obviously, we're issuing a ton of debt right now. In fact, according to BlackRock, we're issuing $573 billion of Treasury bonds every week. To put that in perspective, the entire national debt of Australia is $573 billion. So we're issuing Australia every week in this country, if you want to think of it that way. Would reducing excessive capital and liquidity requirements on U.S. banks for intermediating U.S. Treasury market take the heat off of U.S. capital markets and increase Treasury market liquidity and stability?
I strongly think it would help.
Well, I think that's especially an important comment in terms of your regulatory approach, because, as you know, maturing bonds were being financed at an average of near zero during COVID, and now they're about double the cost of the average of about 3.5%. So now is not the time to make it more difficult for banks to hold treasuries. Let me just drill down with a little bit more detail on this Treasury market structure issue. Do you agree that the supplementary leverage ratio and the enhanced supplemental leverage ratio, the ESLR, are problematic as they create a disincentive for banks, especially large banks, broker-dealer affiliates, to serve as intermediators in the primary, secondary, and repo markets for U.S. Treasury securities?
I do.
And so you would commit to reviewing the SLR framework to create greater capacity for our banks to provide liquidity in the Treasury market?
I think it's time to move on the ESLR. And, we proposed doing so several years ago. We just didn't follow through on it. So I do think it's time.
Well, thank you for that. And finally, yesterday, during your appearance in front of the Senate Banking Committee, Senator Warren asked you about the future of consumer protection laws if the CFPB is abolished. Isn't it true, Chairman Powell, that prior to Dodd-Frank, consumer protection laws were implemented by financial institutions' primary prudential regulators?
Yes.
And so if there were a decision by the Congress and DOGE or whatever to repeal the CFPB, we could return the consumer protection law enforcement function to other financial regulators.
You could, yes.
Thank you. I yield back.